I'm trying to get me out of here. Commissioner McBeth.
Move to approve CR 14-11, Amendment Number 1. Oh, no, excuse me. Where are we? Is that right?
No.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Strike what I just said. Move to approve LCB file number R087-14, regulation relating to trapping, increasing the required frequency of visitation to certain traps, snares, or similar devices used in taking wild animals and providing other matters properly related thereto. You know what? I do not have the changes, so maybe I'm not the best person to make this motion. I'm gonna withdraw my motion. I'm gonna let somebody else do it because I'm not prepared.
Commissioner McNish, you have a stab at it?
All right, yeah. Guy, isn't this ironic? All right, so I'll make a motion to approve LCB file number R087-14 with the following amendments. In section 3, 1B2, to add west of in front of State Route number 31. And in section 3.5, number 5, the reference to mammal be changed to animal.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner McNinch, second by, I believe, Commissioner McBeth. Any further discussion? Seeing none now, I can call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed 8-1. Commissioner Drew was opposed. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 18C, Commission General Regulation 451, Demerit Points for Trespass and Trap Visitation Violations, LCB file number R088-14, Acting Game Warden Paul Dankowski.
Again, for the record, Paul Dankowski, Acting Chief Game Warden, and Tyler Turnipseed, soon-to-be Chief Game Warden. We will present Commission Regulation 451, LCB file R088-14, Saturday for possible action. The existing regulation provides that a person who is convicted of committing a wildlife violation be assessed demerit points according to a set schedule. At the Commission meeting in Tonopah in June, the Trapping Committee reported its findings. A motion was passed with language and intent to modify NAC 501.200, which is the demerit point schedule. That language was drafted and sent to LCB. Return from LCB was the following, and there are 3 sections being addressed in this proposed regulation. First, the proposed regulation increases from 6 to 12 the demerit points that NDOW must assess for a conviction for hunting or trapping on private property without permission. Also included in that section is a proposal to increase from 3 to 12 the demerit points that NDOW must assess for fishing in non-navigable waters on private property without permission. Second part, the proposed regulation also adds 6 demerit points for a person convicted of failure to visit a trap, snare, or similar device 48 hours or more after the prescribed period for visiting the trap, snare, or similar device. A conviction for failure to visit less than 48 hours after the prescribed period remains at 3 demerit points. And third, the proposed regulation requires NDOW to double the 3 demerit point violations that are assessed against a person if that person is convicted of committing the same violation within a 60-month period. Are there any clarifications on that proposed language?
Commissioner McNish, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I see your microphone is on. That's the only reason I asked. Commissioner Lane?
I just want to go back to the hunting, fishing in non-navigable waters or trapping on private property without permission, which was 503.240. You've got a different, so what I'm hearing is The fishing is different. Can you just go through that part one more time if you don't mind?
In the current regulation, the 6-point violation is hunting or trapping on private property. It's a 3-point demerit violation for fishing on private property without permission on non-navigable waters. The language from LCB proposes all three of those, hunting, fishing, and trapping, be moved to 12.
Commissioner Bliss?
I just have a question. Yesterday, I asked about the 12 demerit point violation and not being able to take the hunter safety class to lower those demerits. If you have 2 or 3 demerit point violations that equal 12, is that still the case, or is it just if you have a 12 demerit single violation that you can't take the class? I know if you hit 9, you can, but if
If you have 9 and you choose not to take the hunter education class and then get another violation to bring you to 12 or more, you don't have the option then to take the hunter education. You have to take that option at 9.
Okay, so no matter if you had 3 violations, all basically the same, you're on private property, shooting out of the pickup, and all those add up to 12. It's not a single violation, it's all of them add up to 12, and you can't take the class.
Each event, you only get the highest of the demerit points. So in your example, if you're doing 3 things wrong at the same time and get convicted of those 3, you only get demerit points for the highest of those, whatever those might be, the highest 3.
Okay.
The highest 1 out of the 3.
Okay.
Any other, Commissioner Moray?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't quite understand, and maybe it was just me, but if these changes were made exactly as they're written, if you got 1 violation and got the 12 demerits, can you take the hunter safety course?
No. If it's a 12-point demerit and you get 12 points at one time, you would go before the revocation process.
Anybody else? Okay.
And with that, we will bring it back before the commission.
All right, thank you. Let's go to public comment. We'll start with Bob, and then we'll go to Mr. Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Bob Bruner. I know this is a personal issue for you, and you're trying to solve some egregious things that we had heard in previous meetings, but I don't think this is it. I don't think you can legislate people to have as high a moral code as you have. You can't fix that. So the question that we have is do we have laws in place that will catch people and address situations? And does this law go so far that we're gonna fry some people that don't deserve it? Okay, we have things in place that will address it, and again, we still need to look forward to these egregious things that we've heard about. I mean, those need to be fixed. But is this a way to fix it? What we have here is something that is really going to, I mean, are we gonna catch that person that you're thinking about, or are we gonna cook a couple of people that really don't need it? So I don't think this is the right way.
Brad and then Paul.
Brad Johnston, I think a real key problem is NRS 503-240. I took a drive around a little bit before I came into Fallon today, and ironically, I think a lot of people could enter private property in Mason Valley, hunt, and never violate NRS 503-240. They could be the egregious actor that we're talking about getting 12 demerits, and they would never violate the NRS because much of the private property there has no signs, no fencing, anything of that nature that brings it under this the statute, which talks about what the property owner has to do. And we talked about the other issues yesterday. So unfortunately, I think the egregious actor they're trying to address, the fix might be going back to the legislature and asking them to take a look at 503-240. I already expressed points yesterday, but just it was kind of driving around this morning a little bit before I headed up here to Fallon, and there's not a property there, I think, where someone could be hit with 12 demerit points because it's simply not posted or fenced in the manner prescribed. So I think there are some statutory fixes, but unfortunately, we'd have to ask the legislature to do that to address the problem that I think the commission is trying to address. And for the record, our CAB prior to the Tonopah meeting, and again, said 12 demerits might be a little too excessive for the innocent violator, but we had no hesitation where we have that egregious actor and addressing that and having them go through a revocation proceeding in those scenarios. So thank you.
Mr. Dixon?
Paul Dixon, Clark Cab. Just to reiterate from yesterday, I don't believe that trying to get to deal with the egregious people through trespasses is going to get you there here. I think there are other things that we should be looking at for dealing with those people. And I have the testimony from yesterday. I don't need to repeat it. I just wanted to go there and to say that there has to be a different way to deal with these people, and because there's just too many, as we've heard, unintended consequences of trying to do the trespass thing right now. And the state is not designed, nor are the landowners designed right now to help you enforce that in any meaningful fashion to get you where you want to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
For the record, Joe Blakesley. I don't see this as being about private land or trapping. I said that yesterday, and I'd like to say it again. This is about legislative intent, which we just discussed in the last item. There was a reason that the demerit system was put into place, and it was not to punish sportsmen. It was put in place to eliminate exactly what we're trying to do here, which is ticket stacking. Back in the old days, 2 tickets took you out. The legislature said that wasn't acceptable. What are we doing? We're coming right back to 2 tickets or even 1 ticket taking you out. The legislature spoke, and they picked these demerit points for a reason. The reason the trapping demerit points are where they are is because of multiple traps out there. And there was some ugly things that happened, and I hate to bring the dirty laundry up in public. But there, believe me, the dirty laundry was there. The legislature did this for a reason. And I don't think this commission should be trumping the legislature. The other thing that I think is very significant is every county advisory board in this state said no. I'm not aware of 1 vote in any county advisory board by 1 individual that agreed with any of this. And what it is, it's a visceral reaction saying we don't want to change things. We're okay with the way it is right now. So you're getting a message from a past legislature, you're getting a message from a current county advisory board area. The messages are coming from 2 directions. This is not the first time this has come about. There have been somewhere between 2 and 4 commissions that have heard this in the past, and they've all said it was a bad idea. So what's changed? The people are telling you they don't want to change anything. It's not about private land. It's not about trapping. They're saying this is in place. It's in place for a reason, and it's working. So just ask you to can it all. Thank you.
Mel?
Mel Belding, Washoe County. I think I have more of a question than it's a comment too, but this law is about trespassing, correct? So why is the hunter getting twice the penalty as the fisherman? Hunting now is 6 demerits, but if you're only fishing, you only get 3. Can anybody explain that to me? Isn't it about trespassing? But if you trespass and you're fishing, we're only going to give you 3. But if you have a gun, we're going to give you 6. Explain that one to me. I think we do need a change. I think we should either bring fishing to what hunting is or drop hunting back to what fishing has. The law is trespassing. You're going on someone's private property. Why, if the activity you're doing should make any difference?
Who's next? John?
Yeah, John Sullivan for the record. It seems to me that the proposal as written is we're addressing about 1% of lawbreakers, somewhat at the expense of the 99%. Although the numbers seem to be it's not 1%, it's much lower than 1%. If the email I saw is correct, it's one of these violations per 20,000 license holders. So we're really addressing a problem in a very, very small number of cases, or a very small number, at the expense of frightening, the entire sportsman community, and that's kind of the feedback you're getting here. I voted against this twice. One as a cab member on the Clark County Cab, and also as a member of the Trapping Committee, and I don't see this as the way to go. Egregious violations, should be treated egregiously, but these more minor violations, I think the 3 and 6 demerit violations are treated appropriately today. I think the process is somewhat flawed. I don't think this whole thing is a very good process in that the game wardens don't have a lot of latitude. When they see a violation, they write it up as they're required. The court has no discretion at all. I hear that if you go to court, you plead guilty or not guilty, you get your fine from the violation, but the judge has no role in assessing demerits, and I think that's too bad. I think if the whole process, if there was more judicial discretion, more mitigation in the process by some authority, I think we'd be far better off than the kid that messes up at 14 years old that appears before the court. The court's not going to punish that person with a 12 demerit violation if we had such a process, but we don't. I've made my living in aviation, and in aviation we have a lot of private pilots, they're hobby pilots, and we have the commercial side of the fence, the professionals. And the FAA regulates violations, and there's a lot of violations, with a great deal of discretion. But to revoke somebody's pilot license, to revoke somebody's mechanic's license is taken extremely seriously. That almost never happens. It has to be such an egregious violation that it's very, very rare. They have all kinds of tools in federal regulations within the FAA's discretion at a small level to address these type of violations. We don't on the fishing game side. We don't have that type of system, which is too bad. So I oppose this because I think it's just not the right tool to address what I think is a problem, but this isn't the right tool. Thank you.
Okay, who else? Nobody? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Bliss?
This one again, I've been on both sides of the fence on this one. Literally, I have hunted in the past and been in the Diamond Mountains. There's little 40-acre pieces around springs and water holes all over there that have some makeshift type of fence that's not posted. I've hunted in those spots, got home, looked at the map, realized it was private property, but it wasn't posted, it wasn't nothing. I also live at the base of the Diamond Mountains, and hunting season is a very, very busy time at my house. I don't know how many times at 10 o'clock at night, midnight, I've been out in the middle of my driveway because it's a mile and a half off the pavement and then another quarter mile once you get to my private property to get to my house. I've been out there at midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with a map on the hood of a pickup with a guy explaining to him how to get to the spot that he wants to be because he was lost. That stuff doesn't bother me at all. But when I have someone coming on, you know, I got a family there, I got livestock, you know, my horses, cattle, dogs, kids running around. Yeah, if someone was in there shooting and I had my place posted, which I don't, I'd be a little irritated with it, you know. But I understand both sides of it. I've been on both sides of it. We talked yesterday about trying to find that middle ground, because I think everyone in the room agrees the guy leaning over the railroad tie post with the sign on it, with his casing laying next to the post and dead deer in the field should hit 12 demerit points. But the guy or the kid or someone who makes an honest mistake, gets caught up in the heat of the moment type of a deal, is sincerely sorry for what he's done, I don't think needs to lose their hunting privileges for 5 years, 3 to 5 years, and not just Nevada, but all the surrounding states. But we can't really, the way it's set up now, we can't get 2 levels of it. So, and I also agree with Mr. Belding. I think fishing and everything, it should be the same, just like it's proposed here, to make it the same, because the violation is violation no matter what you're doing there. So I agree with it, but I don't agree with the 12 demerit points.
Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, I slept at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and I still don't completely understand the ramifications of the 12 demerit point thing and the link to the NRS and everything else. And Jack, I get where you're wanting to go with this. Do I have something sticking in my craw about the egregious guys? Yeah. But when I look at this, it feels like we're trying to perform an appendectomy with a chainsaw. And I'm not willing to deal with the collateral damage that this is gonna cause. I mean, I just don't think we can get there from here at this point. When you look at the demerits specific to trapping in the 48-hour period, you know, I asked for clarification on how that would be applied. I guess I got clarification. So basically, you're going to get 6 demerit points potentially for every trap that you missed. And now again, the guy who's doing it egregiously, who intentionally isn't visiting their traps because they're habitual lawbreakers, you know, light them up. But to me, someone could have 5 traps in a canyon and get 6 times 5 for something that goes haywire. And again, it seems like we're going way beyond, you know, what our intent originally in putting this together was. So at this point, I'm not comfortable with any of this. I think if we want to look at this in the future and come back with something cleaner, maybe we do it. But the way this is written now, to me, we can't get there from here. And there's just a lot more gray area and unintended consequence that I'm not anywhere close to being comfortable with at this point. So if we want to be more precise about what we're doing and the intent of what we're trying to do, let's do it. But I don't think we can do that today. I don't think we can get there from here.
And Commissioner Drew looked at me like I'm pushing 12 points on everything, and he's going against me. And that, I think everybody's been around the trapping committee and heard what has gone on there and watched what went on in Tonopah. I have no intent to making somebody that makes an honest mistake a 12-point person. That was never the intent. The intent was for a 2-stage incidental act that was wrong but not malicious intent, 6 demerits. You do something that crosses the other line, 12 demerits, and I believe in that. I wish Mr. Newton would help me out and find an easier way to do it for me, and I keep asking him, he hasn't found it yet. But believe me, I don't want to make a 18-year-old kid that makes a mistake lose his hunting privileges for 3 years, 5 years in multiple states. That was not the original intent at all. The original intent was to take care of some trapping incidences that one of them occurred in Carson Valley on clearly marked property, and got the homeowner's dog and then lied to the homeowner about trapping on that property. Those type of people, I don't have much tolerance for, and to me, that when you get caught and you lie, that's egregious, and you should at that point suffer some consequences without a doubt. But right now, as Commissioner Drew pointed out, we don't have the tool to get to both of those standards, because I do believe there is two standards in this, and we don't have in front of us today the tool. Commissioner Drew's other point about 5 traps in a canyon and we could stack 6 demerit tickets because they could be individual events. Whether it's 6 demerits or 3 demerits, I think that there's still an opportunity for that ticket stacking as or individual events. So whether it's 6 or 3, there's no difference in that guy in that canyon, because if he has 5 traps and they're 3 demerit point, that's 15 points he's done. Why I want it to be 6 and why I'm going to push for 6 today, I'm not going to push on the trespass issue, but I'm going to push on the 6 demerit points if you're 48 hours past your trap check time. I want to push on that because of the Felton issue that came up, and you know, a guy that gets caught one time for being beyond his trap check, that could be an accident. To have a guy caught 6, 7 times beyond his trap check, that's not an accident. That's egregious at that point. And Joel, you're shaking your head at me, and I know you disagree with me, but those type of actions are egregious to me, and there's no doubt in my mind. I do believe that we should take the demerit points to 6 if you're 48 hours past. You know, I've been told that I'm treating trappers different than bird hunters or deer hunters or anything else, and I look through the demerit points, and this basically brings a trapper up to where the standards I'm at, and even gives them a little more leeway of the standards that I'm at if I shoot an extra bird. I don't get 3 demerits for 7 birds. I get 6 for that 7th bird. I don't get a pass for, 48 hours or 1 bird. I think that's more than fair. So with that being said, I'm still going to push on the 6 demerits for the past 48 hours today, but I am, because of the appendectomy with the chainsaw scenario, and I hope that the commission doesn't just drop this while I'm gone. I might be sitting in the audience asking you to go forward on something else that fixes those scenarios. But I'm going to push on the one and back off on the other. Commissioner Macbeth.
Okay, I'm not going to beat to death. I agree with a lot of the statements that were made, Brad, and I absolutely agree that NRS it needs to be fixed to get to where we can get to the egregious actor. So I think that the way this is currently written, it just casts the net too wide, and it's going to catch up, people that we really don't intend to give 12 demerit points. So I can't support the 12 demerit points. However, I think that Mel and Commissioner Bliss make some very, very good points on it makes no sense to have 3 and 6 between fishing and hunting, and I do believe that we need to bring fishing up to 6, and so I like the way this is written, dropping 12 to 6. And I just want to get some clarification. A 96-hour trap visitation violation, it's not listed in this schedule here, but there's the catch-all provision that gives 3 demerit points for anything that's not listed here as long as it's a violation. Is that how that works on the trap check? Okay. And so, and I agree with Chairman Rob that, trappers, with the way trap lines work in each trap, you automatically have a major issue, stacking, these violations. But I think that if you is the way it works is if you get cited for not checking 5 traps in a single trap line, is that a single violation that you only go with the highest demerit point, and so therefore it's 3 and it doesn't, or does it stack and you end up having an issue? That's the way it works. So can somebody explain that one to me? I just want to get that one absolutely clarified in my mind, because it seems to me we're still going to have a problem after we leave here today. And
If we're going to clarify this, Mr. Dankowski and Mr. Turnipseed, I think would be the best to clarify it. I know the department has treated an event in the past. Maybe Joel has scenarios going back further, but if you catch 5 traps in a canyon, Tyler, what are you doing today?
That's 1 citation, 1 event full of demerits. So on that citation, you may raise the fine per trap, but it's one event that's assessed demerits as 1 event.
But you could write it under the law as 5 different events. But you historically haven't.
No, because the way it spells out event, and Paul may want to jump in here too, but sort of like the shooting in the field scenario where you might have 3 violations happening at one time, and that's all 1 event with demerits assessed accordingly. Now, on multiple days, multiple counties, yeah, then those can turn into more events, but 1 day, 1 jurisdiction, 1 event.
Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, and I guess the concern I have is looking back retrospectively, we're dealing with something where we don't have a black and white definition of how those 3 demerits get approved, and so I think there's some discretion there at this time. But what we're proposing, and as Dag Newton pointed out yesterday, the language we have before us is very specific. Failing to visit a 1 trap. It's not failing to visit traps during an event. It's not within a certain time period. I think what we're doing potentially here going forward is tying the hands to that discretion by very specifically saying a trap. And that, I guess, is the biggest concern I have.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's spelled out in black and white anywhere as to, give a specific direction on that. I can tell you what we've done in the past, but yeah, that's not spelled out anywhere.
Commissioner McNinch?
So are the 3-point violations laid out somewhere?
Basically, anything that's not defined in that statute as a 6 or a 12 just automatically falls into a 3, 6, 9, or 12.
Okay.
But
I didn't ask that right, but I'll do a little homework here.
Did I answer your question there? If it's
I didn't ask a good question, so I'll
Where
do
does
a
it state, I know it's not stated as a 3-point demerit, but where is it stated as a violation? Does it say a trap, or that's what we're trying to get to? I don't have it in front of me either.
I think it says
What's the current language for the violation?
I think it says a trap, but let's read it.
That's in there.
Actually, third, or cause to be visited with each trap, snare, or similar device that frequently specified in regulations adopted by the commission.
Yeah, I think it specifies each trap needs to be visited, but I'm not sure that specifically says, how each trap is assessed demerits. Does that make sense?
Problem is then when you go to the demerit language, it says failing to visit a trap.
Yeah.
And this is a whole new provision.
So I get, because I understand, first of all, it hasn't been brought to us under the existing system as a major problem. So I don't see it as law enforcement's been horribly inconsistent here, or we'd have been hearing about it in some sense. So so my concerns there are pretty minimal. But the potential for it, I can see the point. So if it read failing to visit traps, snares, or similar devices, 48 or more hours and just take the A out.
I think the problem is, though, is that the demerit point language has to mirror the actual violation in NRS. In other words, we can't, I don't see how we can assess demerit points for something that doesn't exist. In other words, I think the problem is that if you want to go down that road, you have to fix NRS, the language of NRS to define what the violation is. So I don't think, I'm struggling with being able to get there.
So let me ask one more. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say I would mostly agree with that, other than there are a few places where the demerits can be more specific. I won't say stray from the NRS, but be more specific than the NRS, like Paul specifically points out here, like in fish limits. That the NRS states one thing, basically gives the commission authority to set those fish limits, but then it's set up for demerits where you get, more demerits the higher over limit you are. In other words, being over limit but less than double on game fish is 6 demerits. And then if you're over limit on fish but more than twice over limit, then it's 9 demerits.
Okay, and so I guess, and I would agree with that. So what this is doing then is that we're still referencing NRS 503-570, and that's the language I read. And so what we'll have to be, if we're going to vote on this new provision, then we have to be happy that the violation that is at issue is failing to visit each trap, and that we're raising from 3 to 6, not just the failure to visit the trap within 96 hours, but to visit the trap more than 48 hours after the 96, or if you're in the restricted zone that we just put in place, 48 hours after that. That's what this commission is going to have to decide whether they want to do through demerit points on this. And so I may, without hearing from other commissioners, I might be able to go with the 6 demerit points, on failing to visit over 48 hours. I'd like to, hear some more discussion on that, but that, I think at that point, I'm probably okay, but I'm on the fence on it. I'll put it that.
Commissioner Wallace, and then I'll go to Commissioner Moray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Commissioners Bliss and Drew. I have a little problem with the 6 demerit points, if it's possible to be stacked, like we're kind of trying to hash out here. Because whether we're using discretion today, what's 30 years from now, 20 years from now, I appreciate their discretion and how they're going about it, but if we have it written a particular way that can allow someone to not use discretion and be required to do that, that's where I have a little concern.
Commissioner Moray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question that I have, while law enforcement is up there, we've heard about statistics and what citations have been written compared to the number of hunters or the total of hunters, trappers, fishermen being insignificant. The question that I have for you guys is, you assess and do your investigation before a citation is written, is that correct?
Correct. And
so, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, specific to trapping or specific to the trespass?
Any
or
citations, any citations that you write.
Sure. Yeah, well, for the most part, we try to, have all of our ducks in a row, cross our T's, dot the I's before any citation's written. I think we've always prided ourselves in writing tickets that are justified and completing a thorough investigation beforehand.
Okay, and that's exactly what I thought. And so if one looks at statistics as of the number of citations written, that doesn't necessarily mean the number of acts that have been committed.
Exactly. I think, at least for me personally, there are way more, I would say, 9-to-1 or 8-to-2 of violations that, in my mind, I know occurred, but I can't prove that beyond a reasonable doubt in court. You know, I don't want to be in court on a wishy-washy ticket that I think, you know, that I can't necessarily prove. So there's a lot more that I let go by the wayside than ones that I'll go forward with. And then, like we've talked before and yesterday, the sheer volume of it, you know, with right now we're looking at vacancies in Winnemucca, Battle Mountain, Eureka, Tonopah, Fallon, to the point where there's such a huge tract of the state that's not getting covered. And then on the parts that are getting covered, I pick one trap that I think is a problem and I end up sitting there for a week, then, you know, then I'm not working on all the other stuff going on in that same area too. So sometimes I'm amazed we ever make any of these cases, to be honest with you, because they're that hard to prove.
Thank you. And to add to that is where I live happens to be next door to large tracts of private property. In many cases, the property is posted, the gates are locked, and I see trespass almost daily. And so when I hear the comments about that it's not a problem, it doesn't happen that much, the statistics show that it doesn't happen, I can't buy that. And so I think I'm not comfortable with where we're at right now with the demerit points for trespass. And that's why I think a message needs to be sent. And with the publicity that has gone through this process, I think a message is being sent. But I think if we take no action on it, it's going to fall by the wayside. And so that's where I stand on it.
Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you know, there's been comments about trumping the legislature, and I just want to, this is in Nevada Administrative Code, and the legislature has basically told us the existing law requires a commission to establish a system of assessing demerit points for wildlife convictions and authorizes the commission to adopt such regulations as are necessary to administer the system. And so I don't consider it as trumping the legislature. They've mandated that we do this. Certainly, there's boundaries, and the statutes do put boundaries on that. Maybe that's to address some of the stacking concerns, but they want this at our level so that we can deal with emerging issues and dealing with you know, adjustments that need to be made without having to go through the legislature every time. So I'm very comfortable handling that. I'm not concerned about that. I agree with a lot of the comments on the trespassing. I have an appetite for considering the 6, but certainly the 12 is, you know, we got a lot of work to do, I think, before we get to the 12, if that's where it all goes. So I don't have a concern with that. I do believe we need to move forward on the 48-hour after a 96-hour trap visitation time. If there was, we're talking egregious here, and considering the issues that we've been dealing with, I think it shows just how serious we are about dealing with the issue and getting some compliance. These regulations aren't intended to punish people. They're intended to encourage voluntary compliance. We hear that frequently. That's what laws are all about. The ones that don't voluntarily comply, then they're making decisions, and in this case, there's severe consequences. I'm a little less concerned about having them get stacked up with 9 violations for 48 hours after 96. This is beyond 96 in my mind, as I've said it before, is a little too long for me. So the 48 hours beyond that, it just seems like there's got to be a line somewhere, and it's a heavy consequence if you're that negligent in dealing with your traps that you have out there by choice. If you're dealing with 9 violations, I'm not so worried about that. Now, do I think that that's necessary? Probably not, but I definitely want to see an end to the people that violate that in a much shorter time frame than not. I don't want to allow people the opportunity to do this 6, 7, 8 times, 5 times in a course of a 5-year period, go to a class and get it reduced and be able to do it more over time. I'm just not into that. I think it needs to be heavy hitting, hard hitting, and work people that do this routinely out of the system. And so I have a lot less concern with it in that sense. So,
Sort of along those lines, if I could address a little bit about, the overall concept of the demerit system, and that obviously I wasn't around here doing this in the early 80s when it came to be. I was probably watching Sesame Street or something, but my understanding is that the intent of it was to take out some of the subjectivity or subjectiveness in court sentencing, because you have one justice court in one part of the state that maybe takes wildlife violations very seriously and would want to revoke somebody's privileges for a given thing, and then another justice court that maybe doesn't take wildlife crimes as seriously and wouldn't have revoked licenses. So it's my understanding that the whole purpose of the demerit system is to take out some of that subjectiveness and make it standard to where, okay, this violation should cause this consequence, and that violation should cause that consequence, taking out some of the variability in the justice system and stuff. And you're right, it's in NAC, which means to me that the legislature has charged you with assessing those points. If the legislature wanted it to be set in stone, they would have set it in stone in statute. So I think, they've given you the reins to say, yeah, 48 hours beyond is more egregious than a 2 hour beyond the 96, that sort of example, just like the fish over limit. Double the fish over limit versus 1 fish over limit. One's obviously more egregious than the other.
Any other commissioners have anything? Commissioner Wallace.
Just real quick, Mr. Chairman, after listening to the discussion, Dave made a good point that, if we're talking 48 hours past a 96, that is pretty egregious to me, because you've already had the 96 hours to get there, and you just completely fail to go 48 after that. You can make a call or figure something out within that 48 hours to figure it out. So I feel a little better about that. I'm still don't feel 100% on that, but I feel a little closer to that. And the 6 demerit points, bringing the fishing up to match the hunting, I could probably go with that, but the 12 I have a hard time with. I understand the point, and I've seen it, but the 12 points to go on someone that maybe was not necessarily 100% into knowing what that was going on and were sorry that they trespassed, I have a hard time going that far with those guys.
Anybody else? Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, so in regards to Section 3, just to make sure I understand the change and kind of what the intent is, we talk about, it used to be that you would get double the demerit points for any violation that's listed. And what we've done here is now we've said we're going to double the demerit points for any violation within 60 months. That's basically a 3 demerit or one of the less egregious violations. So I think the intent coming out of the committee was specific to missing your check times. But this is going to have an impact across the board on any wildlife violation. And I don't know if that was the intent coming out of the committee. So I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, because I know I wasn't clear coming into the meeting on that specifically. I'm not sure if the cabs were comfortable and realized how far-reaching that was, especially if we leave the 0 to 48 hour in, because I think you were looking for a kind of the 2-tiered approach to that as well. So I'm just a little uncomfortable with the change in Section 3 right now, because I'm not so sure that was the intent coming out of the committee for it to apply across the board to everything. And maybe, tell me if I'm wrong on that.
Commissioner McNinch.
I would agree. Was this cleanup language, Paul, or is this something that came from LCB, or did we Because it was my understanding, in my mind, the key thing was, if it's a 6, then it's doubled for a second violation. And if it's a 3, then it doesn't get doubled for a second violation. And so if this changes that, then I'm not sure I'm probably in the same boat that Commissioner Drew is in, but.
I'm not 100% sure where that language came from, at what point it was added. So with that, I guess I say Section 4, in a way, answers that question in a way. Any person is convicted of committing any 4 wildlife violations arising out of separate events within a 60-month period basically gets to 12. Gets 12 extra points. So in a way, that is taken into account.
Yeah, I wasn't around, obviously, for all the subcommittee meetings, so I don't know what the intent was here. That's up to you guys. But the wording in subsection 3, as I understand it, is that in the past, it said that if you're convicted of the same violation multiple times within a 60-month period, of those violations that were listed in the schedule, those being the 6s, 9s, and 12s, then they double on the second go-round. I think the new wording as proposed would also include all the ones not listed in that schedule, which are basically all the 3-pointers. And I don't know if that was your intent from the committee or not. I don't know.
Think from the committee it was.
Commissioner McBeth?
I guess I'm having a hard time getting there with this language. I'm not so sure that this isn't just cleanup. This is what it says. A person who is convicted of committing a wildlife violation within 60 months after a conviction for the same violation will be assessed double the amount of the demerit points. And the way that was read before, listed in this schedule, set forth in subsection 1.
So I think before it was talking about all the violations listed in subsection 1.
6 and
i.e.
9, and now
6, 9s, and 12s.
So now what it's doing is it's going to the entire section, which is 501-200, which is
which takes in the 3-pointers, right?
I think it just takes in the 6s. 6s, 12s, and 9, 6, 9s, and 12s. Because the 3s, there's no 3s listed in here, is there?
Yeah. So if you look at page 18, Commissioner McBeth, section 2, a person who is convicted of committing a wildlife